Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien and Bubba here on the morning of Sunday, November 15th, 2020. Sitting in for Paul Harvey this morning. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, Americans, it was a hot July 15th in Chicago. And the convention was getting ready to start at Chicago Stadium. Everybody was getting there. It was a strange year because nobody knew what was going on. The incumbent hadn't announced his plans yet, so Mr. Gardner and Mr. Farley decided to run for the nomination of their party. And there was a scary thought all through that summer of that year because the opposition party candidate was supposed to be a tough guy. Well, the convention started, and Mr. Farley thought he had the convention sewed up, and Mr. Gardner thought he had a chance. Now, as the convention started, the senator from Kentucky at the time, Senator Barkley, delivered a message for the incumbent. And he said, "The president wanted to assure you that the decision of you guys to elect who you want for the high office is up to you." He had no desire to say anything before. The decision is yours. And this was the sum of his speech. It went on for a little bit. And there was a little quiet in the room. When you imagine Chicago Stadium, I mean, it was big. I've been there. It's now torn down, I believe. But yeah, it was a big room there. But unbeknownst to the delegates and to the contestants, it was a rigged convention. Because the mayor at the time, Ed Kelly of Chicago, and his cohorts had set up a stunt. And the senator of Kentucky was in on it. Because down in the basement was a guy. His name was Thomas Gary. And he was the superintendent of sanitation for Chicago. Yeah. And he announced through speakers speaking from the basement, so it was called the voice from the sewer. Yeah, that's what they called it, the voice from the sewer. "We have to elect our man to be our choice for our party." He didn't exactly say that, but I'll reveal it later. Well, the delegates were dumbfounded, and they went on with their business. But Mr. Farley and Mr. Gardner knew that their goose was cooked. They had been had. And yes, for those of you who think what you think it is, let me put some inside for the other people who don't understand. The rest of the story is this. The year is 1940. The Democratic Convention is in Chicago Stadium. President Roosevelt had not said one way or the other whether he's running a third term. Because remember, the 22nd Amendment wasn't there, and it was a no-no to run for a third term because both Presidents Washington and Lincoln, or Jefferson, refused a third term. And so did Teddy Roosevelt, his cousin. He refused to run in 1908, which then he ran in 1912, cost his party the yeah. But anyway, so here's Franklin Roosevelt. All through the spring and summer of 1940, he's saying, well, the Germans have invaded Poland in 1939, and they conquered France in May of 1940, and the opposition would win. Wendell Willkie was the Republican nominee at the time. So he cooked up the scheme, and it worked perfectly, because Mr. Thomas Gary down there at the basement and Mr. Ed Kelly, who controlled the Chicago machine, and they brought in other heavy hitters from other states. So the guys that were running for the Democratic Party had no chance. Because what Mr. Gary was saying is, we want Roosevelt! We want Roosevelt! And yes, on July 18, 1940, 86% of the delegates voted for Roosevelt. Now, Mr. Farley was Roosevelt's henchman. He was his instigator of his first 2 terms. He was like his right-hand man or chief campaigner. Mr. Gardner, John Nance Gardner, was his vice president, who had a confidence from Roosevelt, hey, you can run, I'm not running. Yeah, really? Yeah. So he got his foot taken under it. Plus, Mr. Roosevelt didn't want him in the 3rd term. He had already picked Mr. Wallace to be his vice presidential candidate. Therefore, you see, Americans, shenanigans have happened. The 1940 convention of the Democratic Party, it proves that. This is your favorite alien and Boo Moose Baba sitting in for Paul Harvey this morning. Good day.